Hello and welcome back to the On Mission podcast. I'm your host, as always, Kenny Jones. Joining my two very special guests, Jim Stone, our associate professor, and his lovely wife, Elaine. As many of you know, we spent time talking to each one of our elders right at the beginning of quarantine, and now this is an opportunity to talk to the newest elder and wife on the team, Jim and Elaine Stone. Super excited about this opportunity to talk to you guys and get to know about you just a little bit more. Jim, before we get into talking to you about your faith and how you guys got to know each other and when you came to the ministry, I do want to give people a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. Just prior to service on Sunday, we had a little elder huddle prior to service to talk about the governor's executive orders. And we all kind of said our piece about what we thought we should do. And you really hit the nail on the head with the way you explain it. Can you just give our people a little bit of an idea of kind of what the conversation was?
Well, first of all, let me just say COVID has been a horrible thing for all of us and still is. And I'm praying that it will ultimately be resolved, but God's using it in ways that we can't even imagine. But we talked about how we as a fellowship should respond. And I equated an illustration. We have the privilege of coming to your house on Tuesday nights for our elders meeting. And I discovered after the first night I came, which I didn't realize, that the family rule is to take your shoes off.
Right.
And so as a result of learning that, I started taking my shoes off at the front door. And I think
you just outed me because Rick made reference to a friend in his sermon on Sunday. So now everybody knows it's Kenny Jones is the friend.
That's okay. I like clean and neat. So all that to say, I said, when you're in someone else's house, you certainly need to show respect and honor their request. We're using the county of Caroline's building, and that also falls under some state mandates. And so if the state's requiring us to wear a mask in their facilities, if we want to respect them and if we certainly want to do the right thing, we need to wear a mask. So that was what I said, is we should be using a mask to respect them.
Sure.
And also, it sounds like a wise thing with the peak or the resurgence we've had in COVID.
I mean, the bottom line is now that when people come into the building, they're going to have to wear a mask. It's not going to be something that we can just kind of go, well, if you want to wear a mask, that'd be great. If not, we're going to have to ask everybody when they come in the door to either bring a mask, we'll have extra masks for them. And what's nice about the fact that we've been able to figure out streaming both on YouTube and our website is if they're not comfortable or able, they have the option of watching on the website or on YouTube until we get through this period of time. But I think at this point, we're going to have to be a little more stringent. I mean, really, we have two options, right? We can not wear the mask and just meet online all the time, or we can be uncomfortable for a short period of time and be able to meet in person, which I think we all agree makes a huge difference and has been a huge blessing to us.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get to our question of the day. We like to kind of, and in this case, we just talked about a very heavy topic, so it's good to lighten the mood a little bit, kind of break the ice and talk about, we pretty much rush right through Thanksgiving these days. I mean, some people do Halloween, some people don't, and they rush right into Christmas, and Thanksgiving doesn't really get to do anymore. So is there some kind of a special tradition that you have, maybe a memory you have that you try and recreate in your homes for Thanksgiving? And Elaine, we'll start with you because, you know, Jim's an old hand here in the Jones house. So as you're our special guest, I think this is your first time here at the house. So we'll let you go first in answering. What's a special Thanksgiving thing you try and do in your family?
Well, I will say this year is very different because with two of our children, we're celebrating Christmas and Thanksgiving together, which is not fun, but it has to happen sometime. I would say, unless Jim can come up with, I don't think we have a hard and fast tradition except for food.
Sure.
Always food, certain foods.
Right.
Some are from his side of the family, some are from my side of the family.
What are like specific foods on your side versus his side? What would be differences in the foods?
Okay, his mom's stuffing has become the stuffing we eat.
Okay.
It's got sausage and cornbread in it, and
wow.
Good old Southern.
Nice.
Good old Southern.
Yeah,
cook.
for sure.
Right. So my roots are Pennsylvania. That's where I was born. Only lived there until I was 7. Then grew up DC area. So we're kind of heavier on the garden vegetables. we did succotash a lot, lima beans. Oh, my dad grew them in the garden, so we'd have them. Trying to think, is there another one from my side of the family that we usually do?
Putting me on the test here, I don't know.
Yeah, can't think.
I'm trying to think of all the things. We normally have more food than anybody needs, but it's wonderful.
I am usually the non-theological heretic on this podcast, and so I will say something, as always, that's very controversial. I've made the bold statement that I hate the beach previously, and that's a very rare opinion around here. But I don't like turkey.
Oh, you know.
I mean, I don't mind. I love casseroles. You ask my wife. But what I loved when we were in Okinawa is we would get sushi and wear sandals, because it was like in the 70s in Okinawa. So it became our tradition. So this year, because we're not going to be celebrating with having a big family celebration, we're going to try and go have some sushi on Thanksgiving Day. So that's become.
We do turkey. We are big turkey and yeast rolls.
Yeah.
Yeast roll. But I think the other tradition I think about is we've always, in some form or another, sometimes it's been written, sometimes it was, have you heard about the kernels of corn you put by people's plates and you say, but we've always at least gone around the table and said something we were thankful for before we prayed.
Yeah. I think that's a good practice. If that's not something you're doing, you don't have that tradition, that might be something to look into. Is just, again, as we kind of rush right to Christmas and what's become the commercial version of Christmas, we forget to be thankful, right? To both, I mean, not just to the blessings we've been given, but also to each other and for the family we have and the church we have and all those things. Those are good reminders that we have. All right, I want to take you guys to take us all the way back to the beginning and tell us how you guys met. When was that? If you don't mind sharing when, where, how that came about. Okay. If you want to tell the story, because what happens is the men always mess it up, or they remember it in a way that benefits themselves. So you might want to tell the story.
Okay, I'll tell it my way.
And then you can see if there's any clarification.
I doubt there'll be any corrections.
Just so you know, this is the true way.
Okay, all right.
So in college,
Where'd you go to college?
Oh, University of Maryland.
Okay.
Jim and I both grew up in suburban Washington.
Okay.
He in College Park, me in Adelphi, which is about a mile from the DC line.
Okay.
So my dad was a professor at the University of Maryland, is why we lived so close. So I went to the University of Maryland. He went to Washington Bible College, which is about 20 minutes from his house in College Park. And in college, my family changed churches. There was a couple reasons, but so I started going to the church he grew up in and got involved in their college ministry, and his sister became my good friend, and that's how
he's smiling. His smile's getting bigger as you tell the story, so I can tell he's enjoying this.
He's in my house all the time.
I was at your house, but you weren't. Yeah. He worked full time in college, so I'm putting himself through, but that's how it started. And then I would, be with his sister, and then he'd come home and say hello and those kind of things. And
did you notice him when he would, was this like a he's cute kind of thing, or like he's around? He
was always very winsome, and his family is that way.
Okay.
The problem was he had a girlfriend,
Oh.
So I didn't know. I wasn't really like.
Tim. I don't know if we want to dig too much into this part of the story, but we'll see.
It's okay.
No, I don't think you should.
Well, we should say that my mom is a prophet.
Okay. What did she say? What was her?
Now you're going to go into more of this.
My mom simply said one day to me, Elaine is the girl for you.
Women are smart, Jim.
Yeah,
they see things before we do. Mm-hmm. So. And so then eventually at some point now, did you just start to notice Elaine? Like, how did the transition from this other girl to this incredible woman who is?
So I would have to be honest with you. One day I was at church early, and Elaine was there after she'd gotten involved, and they discovered she had an incredible voice, and so they had her singing in the church. The pastor was mad at me when I took her away, by the way. Anyway, she was warming up and
doing my sound check.
Doing a sound check, and I, honestly, I was just blown away by the fact that when she was singing, it was if no one was there, she was just completely worshiping, and that touched me. And then soon after that, there was I was ordained as a deacon single. It was a kind of an interesting situation. I was probably the youngest deacon ever ordained at my church, and they were going to have some kind of a deacon event. Well, I don't know if it's a deacon dinner or a deacon retreat.
A deacon and their wives retreat.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
And you didn't have a wife.
so I jokingly said to her one morning,
well, somebody came up to you and said, so Jim, who's your wife going to be on this retreat? Because they knew he was single. And he looked, I always happened to be like in the pew talking to somebody in the college group, and he turned and he goes, you want to do it? Like that.
I mean, that's a good line, Jim. I mean, that's a good warm up right there.
I don't know that I was thinking,
But
but
he
it
had
just came
another
out.
girlfriend.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, that's big. So obviously she wasn't that important.
Wow.
Hopefully she's not going to watch this podcast and hear me talking bad about her, but I love Elaine, so I don't care.
All I can say is that we certainly believe God brought us
Of
together.
course. Yeah.
Because in my early ministry, my wife was, I was a youth pastor, and she was the girls' minister, if you would. And she played a guitar and led singing for me. And I don't know if it was good or bad. She taught the kids sign language. They talked during Bible study with their hands. And I said, stop.
Hey, we were still kids then too.
Yeah.
We don't, now we still keep in touch with some of those kids in our youth group, which that after that he moved on to being a minister of ed. But and we think, oh, they're like not that much younger than us. Like it was like 6 or 7 years. Like what? We were
Kids.
Yeah.
Well, you know this. I mean, people still think you're. I mean, people always say how young you guys are, and then Jim reminds me I'm not that young. But he tells me how hard he works to stay as young as you guys look. So
I don't know about that. It looks like I'm losing the battle, but
well, let's go. Well, I've said before, you're like the most in shape guy at our church, and probably one of the older guys at our church. So you're doing a great job. Let's go even further back, right? Obviously, because if you were a deacon when you met Elaine, when did you come to know the Lord? When did that occur for you in your life?
So my parents didn't take me to church as a small child. I rode the church bus when I was big enough to go. The church sent a bus that came just around the corner, and I'm one of 6 kids. So my older sisters would walk me, and then eventually my younger siblings. My father went through a spiritual reconnection when I was probably 7. And I mean, man, he went from not going to totally committed. So, wow, it was a powerful event. Anyway, I was involved in something called Royal Ambassadors, which was a boys' event.
I was an RA.
Yeah.
I didn't know what a Awanas was when I was a kid. We had RAs too.
Yeah. So when I was in an elementary school, and I believe as I think about it, I was probably between either 8 and 9 or 9 and 10. I went to RA camp. And while I was at camp, that was a camp up in Maryland called WMITO. It was women and men together. So I guess it was a girl and guy camp whenever they needed it. A guy named John Saunders was preaching. And man, I can tell you right now, I could sense the Spirit just calling me to make a decision. And I'd grown up in church and Sunday school. And that, I got up as a 7 or 8, 9-year-old, whatever it was, and went up the aisle and asked to talk to someone about trusting Christ. So it was even now, as I remembered, it was just a very clear, powerful event. Then I went back to my church, went forward, and within a month or so was biblically baptized in the baptismal pool in the old sanctuary before they built the one that Elaine knew, because they built a newer sanctuary eventually.
How about you, Elaine? How did you come to follow Christ?
Okay, I had parents who we went to church since we were born. I'm one of 4, and I'm number 3. So I grew up, church was real to me. The stories were real. I never doubted that they were real. My parents, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, everyone was a follower of Christ. So it was very easy for me to believe. It wasn't difficult. So, but we were in a Lutheran church then. My dad was Lutheran. My mom was United Brethren. My dad being big German line, so that a lot of them are Lutheran. When we moved to the University of Maryland, there was one Brethren church we visited and maybe one Lutheran one, but they were very, very different than what we were used to. And so my parents just started visiting churches. Like they were trying to find a church home that felt comfortable. And eventually they ended up at a Baptist church. And that's where they decided we were going to plant in suburban DC. That was most like my mom's evangelical United Brethren background. So when we went forward to join the church, I was at that point probably 8 or 9. I think it was 9. And they sat us all down, and we all had a counselor, and the counselor that was talking to me said, well, have you ever been baptized? And I was baptized as an infant in the Lutheran church.
Okay.
And they said by immersion. And by that time, I'd already seen people baptized that way. And I said, no. And they said, well, do you believe in Jesus? And they went through the plan of salvation. Oh, absolutely. Like, it was not a question for me. It was a very intellectual decision that in my heart I'd already made, but nobody asked me to voice it out loud. So that's when, I guess you would count that as being that's when I got baptized with the rest of my family. And my mom had been baptized by immersion. My dad had not. So my dad and 3 of us siblings all got baptized at the same time.
This is probably a good time to share the fact that we've asked our partners to come and talk to an elder and share their testimony with us. And we talk about the things that we believe in as a church, and then we want to make sure that they're willing to partner on those things. And we're doing the same thing as elders. I'm hearing your testimony right now. You're going to go upstairs when we're done with this interview, and you're going to hear mine and Lindsay's testimony, and then we're going to agree to partner with River Rock Church Caroline. So this is something that it isn't just, it's not beneath us. We're doing the same thing as partners. All the elders will do it, all the deacons, everybody who serves and wants to be a partner has to go through that process. And so this is my opportunity to do that. And like I said, we'll go upstairs, and I assume, based on the fact that you agreed to work for us, that you'll partner with us on all the things we believe in. So we'll talk about that. Yeah.